Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to another video. We are not in the library today. We are in my home sort of library that also functions now as storage for our fall decorations on top, so ignore that. But today we're going to be looking at all the books I DNF'd this year. So I've DNF'd 25 books, which is probably about the usual compared to like how many books I've actually read, which is like 72 or something now. But I have DNF'd a lot of books, and I'm a major proponent of DNFing. I know some people just want to read the whole book, but I even have a video that I'll link down below on 8 reasons why you should DNF a book if you're not enjoying it. So I will link that video in case you're interested. But instead of just ranking them in order of how bad they were or something, I thought I would look at why I DNF'd these books, because that might give me an indication of where my trouble is in picking books and how to go about picking better books and to know my taste a little bit better. So I'm using the Caw Pile rating system of characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment, developed by G from Book Roast. And I've used this system before to rate books, but now I'm going to use this system to talk about why I've DNF'd books. And I think I can narrow it down to maybe one key area that I've DNF'd a book because of that area, but I'm sure some of these it'll be multiple things that I've DNF'd. Like I've DNF'd it because of characters and writing or whatever. Oh look, you're going to get my emails down in the corner. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start with, this is in no particular order. It's just the order the pictures apparently are uploaded in. So this is not the order I DNF'd them in, but here they all are down here at the bottom, all the books I DNF'd. So the first one was The Name of All Things, which is the second book in the, I don't even know what the series is called, but the first one's called The Ruin of Kings. I really can't remember the name of it, by Jen Lyons, and I loved the first one. I DNF'd this book because, well, it doesn't focus on the characters mainly that I thought it was going to. It has, the main character from the first book is not the main character in the second book, and it's really, really boring. So in addition to not liking the plot, really, I'm going to say mainly it was for the characters because it wasn't the main characters from the first book. And that's why I was enjoying the first book. So From Blood and Ash, it has to be one of the worst books, possibly the worst book I've ever read. And it is due to mainly one fact, the writing. Awful, atrocious. Like, my students in high school could write better than that. So Jennifer L. Ermintrout needs to quit and go away. Sarah J. Maas, Crescent City. I DNF'd Crescent City because it felt silly with the way it was supposed to be it was supposed to be an adult novel, but it read very young, or it was trying to be like edgy and cool, and it really wasn't. So would that be, I don't know what that would be. And well, the atmosphere was supposed to be cool and it wasn't. I don't know. The logic maybe then didn't make sense of what it's supposed to be versus what it actually is. I don't know if that's really what they mean when they say logic here, but I'm going to go with it. The Atlas 6. Okay, I DNF'd that because I was listening to it as an audiobook, and it's fantasy, and a lot of times I don't do well with like fantasy audiobooks. I couldn't really keep, I think, all the characters straight because there were a lot of main characters, and there was just, I guess, the plot was okay. I mean, there was just nothing that was standing out to me. You know what? I'm going to put this one in atmosphere. I could put it in just enjoyment, but honestly, the fact that it was supposed to be, you know, kind of a secretive society that was studying secret arcane things, and it was supposed to be complex, the atmosphere just wasn't there that you would think would be, like a dark academia type atmosphere. So I'm going to go with atmosphere on that one. Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I DNF'd that book. I read the first one. Honestly, it was boring as all get out. That's why I DNF'd it, because literally nothing was happening. So I'm going to go plot because there wasn't one. And I'm giving up on at least the Fitz series. I might try, you know, one of our other series, Ship of Magic, The Live Ship Traders or something. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This was not at all what I thought it was going to be. The writing was very, like, literary, very kind of, like, classic even. But for me, and he kind of was, like, reliving the same day over and over. None of it really worked and fit together for me very well, that writing style with that plot, and then I wasn't even enjoying the plot that was there. So, I don't know. We're going to go with logic on that one. Why not? The Roughest Draft. I DNF'd The Roughest Draft. It was a romance novel because I could see where the plot was going. There was no intrigue for me because it was, I literally read like 6% of the book and I was like, well, I can already see what's going to happen here. So even though it was about writing and writers and, you know, I would like that kind of romance, I feel like that one was not for me. All right, let's do, Red Queen. Why did I DNF Red Queen? I DNF'd Red Queen because I don't know. I just wasn't enjoying it. There was the characters were blah, the atmosphere was blah, the writing was blah, the plot was blah, the intrigue was blah, everything was blah. So I guess if it was all just mediocre, I'm gonna give it just enjoyment overall because every category was pretty blah. Love is for Losers. I barely even remember this book. I remember it just being a little young adult, you know, romance story or something, and I don't even know why I thought I would like it. I think it was pretty. The book was pretty. Is that what it was? It was like white or something with a pink cover. Sorry, I'm still getting over being sick. So I'm gonna say, I guess, just overall enjoyment for this one too, just because it's not my kind of book. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I DNF'd that book because I was reading a lot of thrillers, and this one was just about, it was more about the drama, honestly, of the characters, like coming back to their high school reunion from their former kind of glory days, and they had a secret that they all like knew about. I think, you know, I think they'd killed someone or something, and now the secret was kind of coming back to haunt them, and they were revisiting stuff in their drama from the past. So really it was mostly because the drama was not quite what I wanted. So the intrigue or the plot? I'm going to go with the intrigue because I also didn't care about the mystery itself. And honestly, there wasn't really much of a mystery introduced at the point I DNF'd it. So, The Three Body Problem. I just DNF'd this recently. It's a sci-fi, and maybe I DNF'd Leviathan Wakes last year kind of for the same reasons, mostly because I was just confused because it was all plot. It was all plot and like not much about the characters. There was just a lot of stuff happening that I didn't know why it was happening, or I didn't care that it was happening. So I'm going to go plot because I was confused. There was too much plot, and I do like more character driven or even just sort of storytelling driven. I don't know how to word it, but like the writing has to be good. Just the execution of everything has to be good for me. And this one was all just plot, plot, plot. DNF Circe by Madeline Miller, which I love Greek mythology, but this was just like a weak, watering down overview of Greek mythology or something that was not very good. So for me, it was definitely, I would say, the intrigue or even the atmosphere. Atmosphere of Greek mythology should be way more exciting than this was. So you know what? We're going to stick in atmosphere. There could be many reasons why I've DNF'd a lot of these, but I'm already sensing that it's like, it's all over the place. So that's interesting. That's already an interesting trend here, is that I didn't just DNF something. I don't just always DNF because it's too much plot or because I don't enjoy the characters or something. It's a little bit of everything. So I don't know what that tells me. Okay, The Shadow of the Wind. I was hoping that this would be a 5-star. I really thought it would be because it's a book about books, and it was a mystery, and it reminded me of something like City of Dreaming Books or something, about how there's only one book left because somebody's been burning all the copies of this book, and this kid has the last copy and has to figure out who's burning it and why. But honestly, that's not really what the plot was. That plot was just sort of in the background. It was just a bunch of random things happening. So I'm going to once again go plot because nothing really was happening. The Ballad of Perilous Graves. Set in New Orleans. I had really high hopes for that one too. Like not New Orleans, but a sort of magical version of New Orleans that relies on music to keep it alive. That it's like its music was sort of its soul. Which that should have been a way cooler atmosphere because New Orleans is the best ever, and the atmosphere wasn't there for me. The characters weren't really there. The plot wasn't really there. This one might just be overall enjoyment because it was just, there was nothing, everything was just very, very mediocre. The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. You know, that might be another plot one too, just because nothing was really happening, and I thought that it would have, and the stuff that was happening I didn't care about. Or was it because they do try to explain a lot in a short amount of time with the kind of the magic system. But no, I'm still going to say plot. And honestly, the plot was a little confusing, but that's my fault for trying to read an audiobook for something I know is, you know, high fantasy. The ones we were meant to find, I could kind of see where it was going. The intrigue wasn't there for me because there just wasn't much happening. So we're going to put it in intrigue. Yeah, just the plot summary gave a lot of it away in the description, so I kind of knew where it was going, and yeah, just nothing was really interesting me. The Blood Trials, I DNF'd really early on, but I was so excited about it. Becca from Becca in the Books talks about it because she says it's part fantasy, part sci-fi, and I loved that. Like a sci-fi society and a fantasy society kind of at odds with each other. That sounded so epic and interesting. But it was honestly kind of confusing, and it was supposed to be adult, but it sounded very young adult. So does that mean I put it up here too? Because it was sort of like from Blood and Ash, but so was Crescent City, where it was supposed to be adult, but it sounded more young adult. Maybe that's sort of the logic of it. Yeah, okay, we'll put it in logic. More Than This by Patrick Ness. I actually wish I'd continued because it does get to be sort of sci-fi, and it's very similar to the premise of a movie that I can't tell you about, because if I say the name of the movie, you're going to know exactly what the twist kind of is. But I didn't get to the twist, and I wish I had, because it was actually going to be good. So I guess I DNF'd this because I think the plot was just moving too slow for me. It wasn't getting, and it was kind of depressing because I thought the main character was dead. That he seems to wake up dead at the beginning, and so you kind of want to just know more about what he's doing there and why, and I just wasn't getting that fast enough. So we're adding a lot to the plot category, very few to the characters category, so it's interesting. Book Lovers by Emily Henry should have been way more about books and book loving, but it wasn't. And apparently originally it was going to be called City People. That would have been a better title, because it is about city people living in like a little, quaint town somewhere in like North Carolina or South Carolina or something. They go there for vacation or a trip or whatever it was, and they're both like big time, big city, hardcore book like publishers, or editors or whatever they are. But I DNF'd it because, why did I DNF Book Lovers? Well, it definitely wasn't what I expected, because it was not about books. So the intrigue, the enjoyment, the writing, the characters were just sort of fine. In fact, the main character was actually quite annoying. But she's not really the reason I DNF'd it. I DNF'd it because it was supposed to be a book about books, and it wasn't. Oh, so atmosphere. It should have been more bookish, and it wasn't. So there we go. Maybe it wasn't intended to be, but the title just misled me. So His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. I'd never read anything by her before, and I'm sad that this was my first book by her, because I'm a little turned off of reading any other ones. But this one, I just started reading the other day, and once again, made the mistake of listening to an audiobook. Fantasy, shouldn't have done that, should have been reading it physically, but it was boring as all get out, and didn't care about anything that's happening. In this one, I wasn't connected to anything. Characters, plot, writing, there was really nothing that connected me, so I'm going to say my overall enjoyment just was not there. Vinyl Moon. This was a really short little young adult book. It was realistic fiction, and I get it. I got it. I was like, okay, I see why people would like it. I understand there's like, deeper issues and themes and things here. The writing was good. It had like raps or whatever it was. Like she was writing songs interspersed throughout that were cool, but it was just not my thing, because I don't really read, realistic fiction about teenagers and their struggles. And I think it was set in the past too, like the 90s. So the intrigue definitely wasn't there for me. It's not that it was bad, so I'm not going to say enjoyment or writing or characters or anything. It was just not intriguing to me. Blackwing by Ed McDonald. Oh gosh, it was so boring. There was not really much happening in this one either. It did have some atmosphere. I remember kind of liking the main character. The plot, I think, was just okay. Clearly I just wasn't really that intrigued by it. So would I go intrigue? I guess so. Wow, we're tied with intrigue and plot. Firekeeper's Daughter was also mismarketed to me. I thought it was a mystery. It's more just a young adult fiction, realistic fiction. And it dealt with issues that I was not very interested in. So, enjoyment, I guess. I'm sure the writing was fine. Well, obviously, and it was the atmosphere too. You know what? I'm going to say atmosphere for this one, because it was set in, I think it was it Michigan, and there were hockey teams, and it was about her Native American heritage versus her white ancestry on the other side, and it did not resonate with me. It's just not anything I wanted to read about. So for me, it was the atmosphere, I suppose. Oh, how high we go in the dark. I only DNF'd this book because it was too intense. Like, it literally had children dying in it. And like one of those euthanasia coasters, because it was based on like this terrible pandemic that takes over the world and what people have to do to kind of survive afterwards. But it's like a much worse pandemic than ours that we had. So I DNF'd it because there were parts that were just too dark to read about, and I just didn't want to read about that at the time. So, and I had a baby. He was like less than a year old when I DNF'd this book, and so I just didn't want to read about terrible things happening to babies. So I DNF'd this because of would that be the atmosphere? Because it was dark, I guess, or would just be my enjoyment. I'm going to go, I guess, atmosphere, just because it was too dark just for my taste. Not that it was a bad book. And finally, this one was also kind of mismarketed to me. So there's been quite a few books that have been. This book is the sequel. This is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. It's the sequel to Carry On, which I really enjoyed and gave 4 stars to. It's like a little Harry Potter fan fiction kind of thing, basically. If you know anything about Fangirl, I think I've talked about it before too. Loved Fangirl, like at least 4 stars, 4.5 even. Like best romance, young adult romance I think like I've ever read. But Wayward Son was more just realistic fiction, because once the students have already graduated from their magical school, kind of like Hogwarts, but it was called Watford, and now they're going to the American West on an adventure. And I hadn't even got to any parts that had magic in it, and honestly the magic didn't really matter because it was really just about the characters and their lives. I don't do realistic fiction that much, so that was not what I was here for. I was here for, you know, the magic, I suppose. I do like the main characters. The atmosphere, well, obviously I didn't really like the setting, but that's not really atmosphere. The writing, the plot. I mean, I definitely wanted it to not be about what it was about, so maybe that would be plot. The intrigue, the logic. I mean, logic kind of, because why would these characters be going to the West after they graduated, you know? And like, I don't know. No, I'm still gonna go plot because it's not what I thought. Okay, so what does this tell us? Well, that I'm definitely a character-driven reader, I think, because the only time I didn't like a book due to characters was because of the fact it wasn't about the characters from the first book. Other than that, I didn't have too much of a problem with the characters and all the rest of them. This tells me that the one book I thought was actually bad writing was from Blood and Ash, but none of the rest were actually terrible writing or anything. I don't think Blackwing, I don't remember thinking was great either, but I didn't have any issues. Well, Sarah J. Maas, Crescent City, the writing. Actually, you know what, that belongs there. The two of them belong together. They're both terrible. And they suffer from some of the same problems. So we're going to stick them there. Because those are the only ones that stand out to me now that I'm looking as like actually straight up bad writing. Yeah. So this tells us then that I DNF books for basically various reasons, mostly because sometimes I don't like the plot, or the plot's not going where I thought it's going to, or it's super boring or confusing. Intrigue, I DNF it because there's just nothing interesting happening, or I can already predict where it's going, or I don't care where it's going. Logic, these two were hard to figure out where to put, so I think I just stuck them there. And then overall enjoyment. So I don't know what this tells me. Maybe you can help me in the comments down below and let me know what I've learned from this. What have we learned from this? Except that maybe I am a character driven reader, or an atmosphere driven reader even, and then I DNF books mostly because of the plot. Usually I honestly thought I DNF books because of the writing, but I see that's, I mean, obviously the writing's part of the plot. So it's hard to, I mean, the writer writes the plot. So it's hard to kind of separate the writing from everything else. But if I had to pick like something that's like the least or the worst bad of these books' offenses, then I think I put them in the right spot. So hopefully that was somewhat interesting to you, and let me know if you want more videos like this. I enjoy doing tier ranking videos, and you guys seem to enjoy watching them. So anyway, I will talk to you guys again later. Bye.